Hi everyone, and welcome to our information webinar about inspiring the future. Thank you very much for joining. My name's Lara and I'm going to be giving you an overview of what inspiring the future is and how you can use it to support your young people at school. So before we begin, I'd like to launch a couple of polls. So just bear with me one moment. So the first poll that you can see on your screen now is, what is the main motivation for using Inspiring the Future? So is it to help your students become better informed about the world of work, to raise aspirations and broaden horizons, to meet the Gatsby benchmarks, to challenge gender stereotypes, or is it other perhaps? So I'll just wait a few moments for those answers to come through. And if it is an other, that's absolutely fine. And you can send in what your other would be through the questions box as well. Okay, cool. I'm starting to see some responses come through. Keep them coming. Okay, closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'll just share what you said. So a lot of you would like to help your students become better informed about the world of work, to raise aspirations and broaden horizons, and Gatsby benchmarks is still on your mind as well as a key focus, as well as challenging gender and social stereotypes. Thank you very much. It's really interesting to get an insight into your motivations. I'm just going to launch one more poll. So what do you hope to gain from today's webinar? So do you hope to gain an overview of what Inspiring the Future is, or more of an understanding of how you can organise virtual activities? Or is it something else entirely? And if so, please do message on the chat, which there should be a question box in the corner if you want to message what your other might be. Okay, closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so most of you would like to gain an understanding of how you can organise virtual activities, and some of you as well would like to gain an overview of what Inspiring the Future is. That's really useful for me to know, and we will be going over both of those today. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's make a start. Sarah, and I'm a Senior Schools Engagement Coordinator for Inspiring the Future. So I'm going to be supporting school staff to organise activities. So what will we be going through today? So we're going to be going through what Inspiring the Future is, how it works and what the benefits are for your young people, research to support employer engagement, face-to-face and virtual activities. So what activities have previously been organised and can resume once restrictions lift, as well as interactive virtual activities you can now organise. How we can support you, including our range of resources available on the portal. Getting started tips, so next steps you can follow from here to get started. And then we'll have time for some questions at the end. So please do send them in via the questions box during the webinar and we will answer them for you. So Inspiring the Future is one of the programmes run by the charity Education and Employers. And I'll just briefly mention the other programmes connected with Education and Employers for context. So there's Education and Employers Research. So this incorporates building the evidence base on what happens when employers engage with young people. So we're going to be going over just a few research papers a little bit later. I also wanted to mention one of our partners called I Could. So this is a website designed for secondary students containing lots of inspirational and informative videos from a range of professionals across different sectors, as well as containing labour market information. And a buzz quiz is also included on this site, where students will fill out a short questionnaire to find out what animal they are and what kind of roles they might be suited to. So please do check out I Could if you haven't already. what is Inspiring the Future? Inspiring the Future is a free online matchmaking service for state secondary schools and colleges, including pupil referral units as well as SEND schools, and this allows teachers to connect to a diverse range of inspirational volunteers. We currently have over 55,000 volunteers registered on the portal, and a good chunk of which have expressed interest in volunteering virtually at the moment as well. Over 4,500 secondary staff have already signed up, and this online tool allows teachers to embed employer engagement activities into their curriculum. So Inspiring the Future makes it easy for teachers to connect with relatable and inspiring role models from the world of work. It also allows school staff to meet the Gatsby Benchmarks 3 through to 7, which are addressing the needs of each pupil, linking curriculum learning to careers, encounters with employers, experiences of workplace encounters with further and higher education. So that's often a huge focus for careers leaders. For more information on meeting these benchmarks, please see our resource on the portal, which gives ideas on how each one can be met. Okay, so that's just a bit of an overview of what Inspiring the Future is. So why do we exist? What are our aims? So through connecting young people with diverse, passionate and inspirational volunteers, we aim to broaden young people's horizons and raise their aspirations. So young people can't be what they can't see. So by connecting them with exciting and diverse role models, we hope to expose them to a world of opportunities they might not have previously considered. Next one, excite young people about subjects, increasing motivation, confidence and attitude to learning. Challenge gender stereotypes, help young people see the relevance of learning to the real world, help young people able to make better informed decisions about their futures, align young people's aspirations to the labour market, improve academic attainment at GCSE, increase social mobility, so young people from disadvantaged backgrounds can aspire to a range of exciting and diverse jobs. And then we also have a quote here from a teacher after delivering an employment engagement activity. So I will just read that out to you. So the volunteers were friendly and supportive and gave our learners a good insight into their roles as well as ideas of what they could achieve, skills required and the job market and resources. So what does the research say? So there is a huge disconnect between career aspirations of young people and the needs of the labour market, and effective career support reduces this disconnect. You can check out Disconnected, the research report on the Education and Employers website as well. So they found that 5 times as many young people want to work in art, culture, entertainment and sport as there are jobs available, whereas accommodation and catering needs almost 7 times as many students as are interested. So this highlights the importance of connecting students with real-life role models from a range of sectors which reflect the current labour market. Next one, 4 or more encounters with employers reduces the likelihood of a young person becoming NEET, so not in education, employment or training. And this highlights the positive impact employer engagement can have on young people's future opportunities. Next one, a programme of talks can reduce the number of students who feel held back by their backgrounds. So we know that employer engagement can have positive implications for social mobility. And if you did want to look at our research reports, they are on the Education and Employers website under research, or we do have some teacher digests on the portal as well, so under your account. So links with employers, who might be coming into your school? So we have partnerships with employers and professional bodies, and you can see here that we work with a vast array of organisations, including NHS, Bank of America, Department for Transport and Aviation. So this means that there are lots of volunteers that you're able to connect with from those industries. Across these many employers as well, we have a huge range of professionals who are signed up and ready to speak to your students. So these are just some of the volunteers that we have on the portal. So you can see including editors, managing directors, life coaches, doctors. So when you search for volunteers, you can actually filter by sector, which is really useful if you're planning a subject-specific activity, for example, a STEM activity. So we're mainly going to focus talking on virtual activities because I know that that's obviously something that we can do at the moment, but I'll just quickly mention face-to-face activities because they're good to mention for when you are able to have school visitors again. So these activities, remember, they're just suggestions which you can, of course, adapt in line with the needs of your students. So career insight talks, where a volunteer comes in to speak about their job and answers student questions. Mock interviews, speed networking, so volunteers rotate around groups of students being asked quick-fire questions. A careers fair, where perhaps a volunteer might stand in your hall and might show materials relating to their sector. Help with CVs, so this can be tailored to each student to meet the Gatsby benchmark of addressing the needs of your pupils, for example. And there are other activities that can take place outside of school too, such as workplace visits, job shadowing, mentoring, work experience, which are just useful to bear in mind for when normal activity resumes. So, virtual activities, which I know is a big focus for a lot of you attending the webinar today. So as we mentioned earlier, we have adapted the portal so teachers can search for and invite virtual volunteers to their virtual activities. So last term, we facilitated virtual sessions and we've now put together best practice guidance and resources for teachers, which are available on the portal. So this means that you can plan exciting, bespoke virtual activities to motivate your young people, delivered at a time and date of your choice. You can also access a pool of thousands of virtual volunteers who've opted to volunteer virtually from a range of levels and sectors. So this means that you're not limited to volunteers by local area as well, which is especially exciting if you're in a rural area where you wouldn't usually have access to a wide range of volunteers. Our suggested activity is career chats, which is similar to a traditional Q&A style structure, but you do have the freedom to adapt your virtual session to whatever you think will be most suited to your students. We also know how important it is to ensure your virtual activities are safe, so we have provided some resources to help you choose a tech platform that's in line with your school's safeguarding policy to mitigate any safeguarding risks. So what does a virtual session typically look like? What is this career chats format that we just talked about? So virtual activities might typically last an hour and 15 minutes of that might be for a volunteer briefing just before the session. So that's a good opportunity to chat through the aims and the format of the session and answer any last minute questions before you start. Volunteers can broadcast their microphone and camera so you can see and hear them talk about who they are and what they do. Like I am talking now. To keep sessions as interactive as possible, we'd suggest allowing plenty of time for some Q&A time. Sessions can also involve the volunteer bringing in some kind of prop or wearing their uniform to help explain their job. We recommend interactivity being at the heart of these virtual activities, for example, by adding some polls like I did at the start. So some examples of polls you could add could be, do you know what you want to do when you're older? Or what skill do you most want to develop? Just to get an idea of where your pupils are at. You can also utilise the chat function, so getting students to type in their questions or comments or learnings during the session to keep that interactivity up. And then you can also read that out to the volunteers. And then I've got some quotes here from a secondary teacher after a virtual session and quotes from a couple of students after their virtual session as well. So I'm just going to read those. So a secondary teacher said the students don't have full access to our usual careers learning, such as workplace visits and placements. So the virtual sessions provided an exciting opportunity for our students to meet volunteers and ask questions about their career paths. It was also refreshing for the students to have a change of activity. And students said, I learned that failing is okay because you're learning from your mistakes. And I learned how important school subjects such as maths, English and science are in order to follow your career choice. So you can see there the link between curriculum learning and careers. Okay, so how do you actually set up a virtual session on the portal? So you can create a free account on Inspiring the Future, which you might not have done already, or perhaps you already have. And this means that you can access our step-by-step guides, you can create activities, invite volunteers and communicate with them in the run-up to your activity. So I've included some example screenshots of the portal looks. So the map image you can see in the middle here is what will come up when you search for volunteers, when looking for volunteers by local area, and you can navigate through the icons there. But you can also see on the right-hand side a list of volunteers when you select the list view rather than the map view. And you can click on view profile on each of those volunteers to read a short bio about each volunteer before inviting them to your event. But if you do want to look at step-by-step guide of how to do that, then they are available on the portal as well. And then you can also chat to them using the chat messages function as well on the portal to communicate with them before your activity. So there's a range of support available to help you use Inspiring the Future to create virtual activities, because we understand this is very new for everyone involved, so we want to be as helpful as possible. So first of all, we've got a team on hand to support with any questions. So we're always available by phone or email and can support you with any queries. So please do get in touch if you would like any support at all. We're training teachers to deliver virtual sessions independently through CPDs, where we will offer more detailed advice to creating and delivering an impactful virtual activity. So this is just a general info webinar, but in the future we'll be running specific CPDs to help you with this. So please do keep an eye out for our upcoming CPDs in our newsletters. We also have a range of resources on the portal to support creating and delivering face-to-face as well as virtual activities. So I've just included some examples here. So we've got a range of guides to help you actually navigate the portal. We've got tech platform guidance and a safeguarding checklist. So we know that safeguarding is really important, and it can be overwhelming to know where to start in terms of what tech platform to use, for example, Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So we've got a safeguarding checklist you can run through, as well as an overview of the functionalities of different tech platforms. We've got a template script and PowerPoint, which you can use and adapt to suit your own session. We've got step-by-step activity guides. So this runs through step-by-step how to deliver that career chats activity we talked about earlier, if you'd like to use that template. And then we've also got pre and post activity resources. So this is a range of activities you can do with your students before or after a virtual session to embed the learning and further get them thinking about the world of work. For example, we've got a resource using I Could, so that's the free website I talked about at the start, which contains job information and videos. So the resource is using that to inspire young people reflecting, as well as a resource to reflect on employer engagement activity, and a resource about preparing to speak with volunteers. So there's a few different activities that you can do in your class kind of around your virtual session. Parental engagement activities as well. So we have some activities young people can do with their parents or carers at home, such as interviewing their parent or carer about their job. And then feedback surveys and receiving a. So you can receive a link to a feedback survey for your students to complete just after the virtual session, and then we can compile this into a bespoke report for you, which will detail the impacts of the activity on your students. And this might be useful to share with your head or at a governor meeting, for example. So what are the next steps for you in creating a virtual activity? So the first step, create your Inspiring the Future account if you haven't already. Think about when and what you want to do. And we've got some resources I think it's called a Getting Started resource that will help you with that on the portal. Think about what volunteers you would like to invite. Choose your preferred tech platform to host your activity. Invite in your volunteers. Communicate with volunteers in the run-up to your activity. So make sure that you organise a test meeting on the tech platform that you want to use. Prepare your students and deliver your activity. So perhaps you could do some of those pre and post activities that we talked about earlier, and then collect feedback and receive your bespoke impact report. So that's kind of the journey outlined for you. And as well, please do contact the Inspiring the Future team for support and resources along the way. So that's a bit of an overview of the next steps. So bit of a whistle-stop tour, but that's the end of our info webinar. I hope you found that useful, and thank you for joining. And if you do have any questions, please do send them through now and I'll be happy to answer them. Feel free to note down our contact details as well, which are on the screen now. As well, we're also on Twitter, so please do follow our Twitter account to see our latest news, see what other schools get up to, and of course share your activities once you've done an activity. So I'm just going to have a look through, I think a couple of questions and comments have come through, so I'll just start to have a look through those, but please do send through any questions you may have. So hi Lisa, will you send us this presentation? Yep, I will send you the slides afterwards, and as well I will send you a link to the recording. So if you have missed any of it or you'd like to share it with any of your colleagues, that's absolutely fine. If we do not have access to computers for all students, could a virtual session work without them? Yeah, so you've got a couple of options there. So you can either have sessions in something like a computer room and each student can have you know, their own computer and independently, or you can do it as a class and you can have a virtual activity broadcast on the, you know, on the big screen in front of you. So I think there's a couple of options there. I hope that answers your question, Lisa, but feel free to send any more follow-up questions for that. Linda, you've asked the same thing. I'll be sending the slides through. So I'm just going to read the next few questions. Yeah, good question, Mary. So you've said, are these virtual sessions, geography is not a barrier. So I think that's one of the kind of unexpected bonuses, is that you're no longer limited to the volunteers that you're in your local area. So you might have access to a more of a diverse range of volunteers. So there is a function to pull up volunteers from a particular sector. So when you're searching for volunteers, perhaps we can go through this on a future CPD, or I'd be happy to have a call with you. You can filter by sector at the side, and you can filter by healthcare, for example, science and technology, construction, whatever it might be to suit your curriculum activity. I hope that answers your question. Yep, so quite a few of you asked about how to access this afterwards, and I will happily send you. Please do send in any more questions. I'll just read the next few. So Amy, you've asked, can the sessions be adapted for year 12 and 13 students? Absolutely. So the sessions we ran last term, we delivered them, well, we did primary as well, but we also delivered them from year 7 right to post 16 as well. So I think that's just a case of adapting it to suit your students. So perhaps you want to talk about the educational pathways or whatever it might be that might be suited to those year groups, but you can of course adapt to those students. I hope that answers your question, Amy. Amanda, so Amanda's asked, you'd like to do this with Key Stage 3 students. Can I have more than one volunteer, as I think an hour with one speaker might be too long? Yeah, absolutely. So apologies if I didn't highlight this earlier, but the sessions that we facilitated, we usually had sort of 3 to 4 volunteers just to get that variety. And I think I agree that an hour with one speaker might be too long. So absolutely, you can invite multiple volunteers to one activity. Emma, you've asked if the speakers are free. Absolutely, they're all volunteers. They've signed up to volunteer with the hope and the aim of going into schools and making an impact. The service is free to all state schools and colleges. So yes, this is a free service for you. Chris, you've asked a really good question. Do you have any shorter clips of employers talking about their job roles? So this is where I direct you again to the iCould, I think it's icould.co.uk or icould.com, the website, and that's where there is lots and lots of videos from different volunteers talking about their job roles. So that might be a good one to explore with your students, and rather than it being a live session. Angela, you had to leave, no problem. So Amanda, hi Amanda, you've asked, can these sessions run after school? Can students access this from home with me running the session? Yeah, absolutely. I think you've just got to tailor them for however suits your school environment. So it might be that you're really busy during the school day and you just can't fit them in. When we did them last term, we started out doing them where the students were at home, because that's where most of the students were, kind of April time. So yeah, you can absolutely have students joining from your school or students joining from your home if that's more suited to you. So Alison, hi Alison, if we are having a virtual careers fair, would volunteers be able to support this event? Yeah, absolutely. We don't have like a specific step-by-step guide for a careers fair activity just yet, but I'd be more than happy to talk you through how you might do that. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and support you on that. I think it's just a case of communicating well with the volunteers before the activity and thinking carefully about the format of how that might work. You know, would you have kind of different breakout rooms for different volunteers? You know, how might you replicate that virtually? But I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. I think that sounds really interesting. Patricia, hi Patricia, will volunteers be available in school all day? I think that really depends on the volunteers. I think usually volunteers are expecting to volunteer for maybe an hour or so over one day rather than it being the whole day, but they all have different work schedules. You know, some might be available in the morning, some might be available in the afternoon. So I think it's just a case of on your event description, making it really clear when your activity is and when you would like it to be run, and not taking too much of the volunteers' time, because most of them do work full time. So I think that's probably just something to consider. I hope that answers your question. Hi Carol, really good question. And it's something that I didn't mention in this webinar, so sorry about that. So you said, are there pre-recorded sessions available on your platform for school staff to access and use? So yes, so we actually recorded an NHS session, NHS pre-recorded session with different volunteers from NHS. So if you would like to access that, we do actually have a form online you can fill in, but please do email inquiries that's on the screen now, and you can access that session. So that's about half an hour, and that's got activities and a resource with it as well. So that's something that you can access, and that's available free for anyone who would like to use it. Angela, really good question. So you've said, how much notice would employers need or prefer? I would give it at least a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. Definitely not kind of, you know, within a few days or the next week. I think it's a good idea to have kind of regular communications with the volunteer and make sure that you set up a test meeting. And I think just to account for availability, maybe give yourself a couple of weeks leeway, just so you can make sure that you're fully prepared before the activity. And yeah, as you know, if you're giving volunteers more notice, then perhaps they're more likely to make it and squeeze it in with their schedule. So I think the more notice, the better, really. Thank you, really useful. Yeah, please do get in touch if you have any more questions. Okay, I think I've gone through all your questions, but if there's any more, then feel free to send them through. But otherwise, please do email inquiries. My name's Lara if you want to ask to contact me as well, but myself or one of my colleagues will pick up your email in inquiries. Yeah, thank you very much for attending, and yeah, we're always on hand if you want any support, and I'd be really interested to hear about the activities that you'd like to get involved in as well. I think I will end it there. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Bye-bye.